Everdark, Episode 90, New Things. Last on Everdark, Christian and Balthazar bring Elgar and Eyros' skull home to Ravenscroft Manor. Upon seeing Eyros' skull, the war and the losses from it fully come home to Damon, who swears to never let it happen again.
Come on, Elgar. Julian and I will show you to your new room.
Christian reached for Elgar's nearest hand. Elgar looked down at his hand and blinked. He took it carefully and allowed his cool fingers to wrap around Christian's hand. When Christian tried to tug him towards the manor, he resisted though, as he looked longingly towards the skull.
Hold on,
Julian said, evidently seeing the same thing, went over to Damon and touched the skull.
I think Elgar still needs this.
If His Majesty wishes it, then I cede it to him,
Elgar cried, but the longing and anxiety in his eyes stated otherwise. Damon's expression softened. Of course, Elgar. Here, I did not mean to take it from you. He handed Eyros' skull to Elgar. Elgar took it and held it tightly against his chest. Christian's gaze lifted to Balthazar's face. His master looked strained. This skull was a physical reminder that even vampires could die, but it also showed Elgar's mental fragility. Be careful with Elgar, Christian, Balthazar warned, confirming Christian's thoughts. His body may be restored, but it is clear that his mind is still brittle.
I will. He just needs time to get used to things,
Christian answered. Balthazar smiled and shook his head. I thought you might be jealous or worried about Elgar, but you're his biggest booster.
I don't think your feelings for me are so insubstantial that you would throw me over,
Christian scoffed.
You are, if nothing else, very loyal.
His master's right eyebrow rose. Yes, that is true. Then with an impish smile, he added, You're not jealous at all?
No, I'm excited to have Elgar here. I get to know more about you, and not to mention the world as it was in his time. Aren't you excited about that? You could learn so much from him,
Christian asked.
While Damon tells us much, it's harder to get information from him. He's more secretive about things.
Balthazar blinked. Yes, I suppose that is true. Well, I will look to you to find out things first. Christian smiled.
Afraid that you'll lose your master aura?
Balthazar snorted, as if I could be seen as anything less than awesome.
You're so modest.
Christian lifted an eyebrow. Modesty is underrated. I am a truth-teller. With a serious look, Balthazar added, Now be careful. Reach for me if you need anything at all. Christian nodded, and then turned back to Elgar, whose gaze was flickering between him and the skull.
Come, I think you'll like modern plumbing.
This time when Christian tugged on Elgar's hand, he went with Christian eagerly. Julian kissed Damon's cheek and got a caress in return. Then Julian was striding alongside them. Elgar lowered his head and whispered to Christian, The prince should not be serving me. Julian cocked an eyebrow up as he and Christian's gazes met. He felt his best friend's consternation. He didn't want to be seen as a prince, but as one of them. Yet his role as fledgling of the king meant that he wasn't perhaps completely free to.
But what if Julian wishes to? Would you deny him that?
Christian asked. Elgar's head jerked up, and he looked at Julian with wide eyes. Though Elgar was an Eyros, he clearly was not reaching for Julian's mind. It was a matter of respect. He would never read Julian's mind without permission. Christian realized he had kept the same distance until now. He had touched his best friend's thoughts, but not the deeper ones, only the ones that Julian wanted him to know. So Elgar did not know what Julian wanted.
Elgar,
Julian said softly.
I need your help.
Of course. Whatever you need.
Elgar stammered. Julian grimaced slightly at this obsequiousness, but then smoothed his expression to one of calmness.
I need friends. Friends like you who know the past, who understand Damon and Balthazar and all the other immortals.
As I said, to be your friend would be an honor.
Elgar was going to bow, but Christian kept him upright.
Well, part of that means that I need you not to bow or worry about me serving you. Because if we're friends, Elgar, then you need to let me act like myself.
Julian put a hand against his chest.
Not as a prince, I need spaces where I'm just Julian, and I would like one of those spaces to be with you.
Elgar nibbled on his lower lip for long moments as they walked down the stairs to the lower level where the bedrooms were located. Christian thought that Julian's offer should have been a simple one to accept. Who wouldn't want to be Julian's friend? He knew he was biased, but when someone gives you a heartfelt speech like Julian just had, normally one would accept it. Yet Elgar was taking his time. Christian saw Julian's expression harden and a mask fall over his face while his mind filled with distress. Christian felt a wave of pain flow over him too. Had he totally misunderstood who Elgar was? He should never have presumed to bring into their circle someone he didn't know. And yet, he felt like he did know Elgar, so this made absolutely no sense to him.
I must have completely misunderstood what I was feeling from him and for him. I'm sorry, Elgar. I shouldn't have presumed that you would wish to extend friendship to someone you don't know,
Julian said stiffly.
Forget I asked.
No! Elgar's head jerked up again. There was something almost horse-like in that movement. When a horse is startled, that was.
No, no. You misunderstand my silence. Please, forgive my seeming reticence. It is not what you think. I would like your friendship more than anything. To be your friend in return, I had to think about whether it would be best for you.
Julian's eyebrows rose, even as his lips formed a frown. The pain from before, though, lessened. This wasn't a rejection. Christian's chest felt less tight as he realized this.
I'm afraid I don't understand,
Julian confessed. Elgar bobbed his head.
You prize friendship, loyalty, and sincerity very highly. You could not imagine that someone could serve you better than to be your friend.
Julian nodded after a moment.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment of me.
And I imagine that being your friend would give anyone great pleasure.
Elgar intuited.
Christian is not one to give his friendship easily, but he is utterly devoted to you.
Christian nodded as well.
I am. It has been and always will be the cornerstone of my life.
Julian's amazement and happiness were like a sunrise between them. Julian smiled so broadly that his eyes nearly shut. His voice was husky as he said,
The same with me.
That friendship began when you were children, and friendship was the best thing you could have between you.
Elgar stretched his right hand over the top of Eyros' skull.
But I am meeting you now, when I have other things I could offer that might suit you better.
Julian frowned. Christian joined him.
I can assure you, Elgar, that I want your friendship more than any of these other things.
Julian shook himself. Elgar bobbed again.
Yes, I know, but your protection is far more important. So I was going through scenarios as to what would be the best role I could play in order to keep you safe.
A dawning understanding came to Christian as he saw Elgar stroke Eyros' skull. He touched Elgar's shoulder.
Listen to me. You are not responsible for what happened to Eyros in the war. In battles, terrible things happen. But I can assure you that the friendship and counsel you offered Eyros back then was invaluable to him. Protection is an illusion,
Julian said firmly.
We're in danger no matter what. No matter how we try to stack the odds in our favor, if someone as powerful as Eyros, or as far-seeing as Seer, or is able to escape anywhere like Wyvern fell, then...
Julian shrugged.
Basically, if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone.
They had reached the bedroom, and the three of them stood outside of it. Elgar was still holding Eyros' skull close to his body. He was almost curled over it. His expression was racked with guilt.
If I had spent more time using my gift instead of being Eyros' friend, perhaps we would have had the advantage,
Elgar whispered.
Or maybe, if you weren't friends, the battle would have gone worse. Maybe Eyros wouldn't have lasted as long as he did.
Julian put a hand on Elgar's slender shoulders.
But I do know one thing, and I'm certain that Balthazar would confirm it, which is that his life before would have been far less happy and enjoyable if you hadn't been his friend.
A single tear ran down Elgar's cheek. More came. His shoulders hunched and then shook. He turned from them and hid beneath his hood.
Forgive me, Your kind words are like a balm. I cannot quite control myself.
Both Christian and Julian rubbed Elgar's trembling back. Slowly, those shakes left, but Elgar seemed simply wrung out.
Come, let's get you into the shower and bed. Do you, want to feed?
Julian asked. It was still strange to Christian, too, to talk about food and human beings, but most of the acolytes seemed really into it, except for Dr. Stone. But he found the lack of control disconcerting. Elgar's forehead furrowed.
What is a shower?
It's, let's just show you.
Julian suggested. Christian tried to send Elgar the image of a shower, but that just caused more consternation.
I do not understand. Metal and...
Elgar shook his head.
How do you heat the water? Where are the flames? How does it get pumped here? Is there a windmill or are there acolytes pumping it by hand?
Oh boy, this is going to be interesting.
Julian laughed, but kindly.
I wonder if he'll be as interested in breaking the toilet as Damon seems to be. Though I think he does it because he thinks it's funny, and will annoy Balthazar.
Christian snorted.
Indeed. Come this way, Elgar. I think you are truly going to love modern plumbing.
If Everdark Academy is almost done being written, is that the end of the Everdark universe? No. In fact, I'm planning the third Everdark story now. Like Everdark and Everdark Academy, the story will focus on different main characters, including a fan favorite who's getting his own love interest, but will also have the same characters from Everdark and Everdark Academy that you've grown to love. It will also introduce some new characters that I also hope you come to love too. And this book sets up a fourth Everdark story. I think it's safe to say that as long as people want more Everdark, I want to write it. If you want to read the nearly complete sequel, Everdark Academy, the link to the sign-up form is in the notes.
Christian touched the light switch to illuminate the room. It was on a low setting, as sensitive vampire eyes hardly needed it, but he found the lower light more congenial than blazing electricity. Yet for Elgar, even this little bit of illumination had him stopping dead in his tracks. His eyes were huge as he looked at the strips of light that were hidden by the crown molding, but cast a pleasant low glow.
What is that? How does it create light without burning? Are they like the glowstones in the Everdark? They do not seem the same. And
Elgar, these are electric lights. They burn, but not in the way you think.
Christian suddenly felt overwhelmed for his older brother. There were so many things in this modern world that Elgar would not know, let alone understand. There were so many things he didn't understand but knew that they worked, like electricity.
We need to get Elgar here a tablet or a computer so he can search the web and find out about the modern world,
Julian suggested. Christian took in Elgar's amazed expression as he stared at the lights and then at the flat-screen television. Elgar stroked the plastic.
He's never seen plastic before. Imagine the life he left and compare it to the one now. He's going to have so much to process, but not at this moment. That's a television. It's a device that streams moving pictures.
Christian sought for and found the old-fashioned word that helped the public understand this new technology. When it came out,
moving pictures?
Elgar frowned. Christian wanted to get Elgar into the bathroom, but Julian evidently couldn't resist showing him the wonders of television. Julian grabbed the remote and aimed it at the television. With a soft click, the television came to life, illuminating the room in a comforting glow. Christian had last been watching one of the nature streaming channels that showed lovely views and played soothing music, but it was not soothing at all for Elgar. Elgar stumbled back from the television that was showing a sunlit day. He held an arm up to block the sun from streaming upon him, but then he was grabbing the two of them and trying to hide them all under the bedclothes.
Whoa, Elgar! No, it's not the real sun. It's not a window,
Julian cried as Elgar tossed the thick comforter over Julian's head. His best friend looked like he was wearing a very bad ghost costume for Halloween, but he didn't have much time to find it amusing, as Elgar was literally shielding their bodies with his own.
Elgar, we're fine. This device won't hurt us, just like a painting of the sun wouldn't.
Christian finally assured him. Elgar's chest was heaving, though. His eyes were huge. Christian managed to break away and turn off the television. Darkness fell once more. Julian pulled off the comforter. His hair was standing on end.
You deserve all the static electricity you get,
Christian told him with a frown.
Yeah, I do and then some.
Julian looked sheepish. He ran a hand over his head and said to Elgar,
I'm so sorry. I should have prepared you for that. I just thought you'd find it cool.
Elgar, breathing still coming in gasps, was checking his skin for burns. He checked theirs as well. When he realized that there was no danger, he covered his face with his hands. And I thought I could protect you better than be your friend. Elgar laughed shrilly. I do not understand this place at all. Christian put an arm around his shoulders.
You will, I promise.
With a warning look at Julian, he added,
We're just gonna take things slow. Come, I think the shower will be enough excitement for the day. Though there is a large tub if you'd rather take a bath. I think a shower first, and then a bath. Sorry, Elgar, but you've got enough dirt on you to blacken the water of about 10 baths.
Julian said with a grimace.
Taking a shower first will get rid of a lot of the grime, and then you can soak and relax.
Yes, indeed. Burrowing underground for so long has left me quite unkempt.
Elgar agreed, and he drew the filthy shroud around him. Christian carefully led him over to the bathroom's door. He reached it to turn on the light.
Look inside first.
Christian cautioned. He wasn't going to have the toilet scare Elgar. Elgar leaned forward. His eyes ran over the vanity where there were double sinks. He gazed at the toilet distrustfully. The tub brought a smile of recognition, though the material it was made of seemed strange to him. Finally, his gaze alighted upon the shower. The sleek glass walls, the shiny fixtures, the beautifully patterned marble.
That is the shower?
Elgar asked, evidently comparing the real thing to what Christian had inartfully shown in his mind.
Let me show you how it works,
Christian suggested. Elgar nodded. Christian stepped into the bathroom while Elgar carefully followed behind. He opened the glass door, which Elgar carefully inspected.
This is glass,
Elgar stated excitedly.
But it is so clear, so fine, and such a large sheet. I have only seen such things in the Everdark. Did we bring this here from there?
Not this piece, no.
Christian explained.
It was manufactured here, but I don't actually know if vampires introduced the concept of this kind of glass.
It's so thick.
Elgar put his thumb and forefinger along the edge.
It would be very difficult to break.
That's the idea,
Julian said from the doorway. His best friend was leaning against the doorframe.
It's tempered glass, safety glass. If it breaks, it does so in a way to cause the least injury possible.
Elgar examined the door minutely.
Such a wonder.
Julian grinned.
Again, I am so sorry that I scared you with the television. It's just, if you think safety glass is a wonder, I can't wait until you see real wonders.
Christian smiled. His best friend had a big heart and wanted Elgar to see things with awe and joy. But fear was always part of something new.
And he's so fragile still after what has happened to him. We need to go slow. I'll just have to keep reminding Julian of that. He jumps in with both feet first. See these handles, Elgar?
Christian asked, as he pointed to the largest of them. He then pointed above them.
If you turn it, it will turn on the spray from that shower head.
It was the rain showerhead.
And this handle turns on these jets.
He gestured to the 3 jets.
And this handle controls the temperature of the water. Once it hits the midpoint, the water will get warm and then very hot. I like it at this temperature.
Christian had it already said.
Does that make sense?
Elgar nodded, but Christian wondered if he truly understood it.
He'll learn, and probably make some mistakes along the way. But that's all right. That's how people figure things out. Now come over here and turn this handle.
He gestured to the handle for the rain showerhead and stepped out of the way. Elgar tentatively stepped inside the shower. He ran his hands along the marble tile and the walls of glass. He stroked the handle.
It is so finely made. No imperfections,
Elgar murmured.
The moment you turn the handle, the water will start coming out of the rain shower head. So expect to get wet.
Christian warned him. He already knew that Balthazar wanted him to get that horrible shroud away from Elgar and burn it. Occasionally, as they had walked, he'd seen the image of the shroud burning. He also saw that Balthazar wanted the skull put in a box. hidden away somewhere, but that was not going to happen. Even now, as Elgar went to turn the shower on, he had the skull tucked firmly under one arm.
Balthazar will just have to accept getting half of what he wants. I'll have to get some clothes for Elgar for now. I'm sure that Balthazar will have him fitted later, but he needs something to wear.
Elgar turned the handle. A little at first, and a small trickle of water came out of the rain shower head and dribbled down on his face. The water was cool, but Christian knew the moment that it became warm. Elgar let out a gasp and turned the handle all the way. A steady stream of water came out of the rain showerhead. Elgar tilted his head back and let the hot water flow over his face. He opened his mouth and let it fill before spitting it out. He put Eyros' skull beneath the steady hot gust of water.
Eyros, what a wonder this is,
Elgar told the skull.
Oh, it is magnificent.
Don't they have something like this in the Everdark?
Julian asked, frowning.
I think they put the plumbing in later. It looked like humans made it to me. And clearly from his reaction, this is something new.
Christian said.
Yeah, Damon wasn't altogether familiar with it either. But he picks things up so naturally, it's always hard to tell when something's actually new.
Julian admitted with a shrug.
Elgar!
Christian called over the noise of the spray, or rather, sprays. Elgar had turned on the body sprays too, and was letting out hoots of enjoyment.
This is marvelous,
Elgar cried, his expression rapturous.
That's good.
Christian grinned.
There is soap for your body and shampoo for your hair.
He pointed each one out. Elgar took the shampoo bottle and opened the top. He sniffed the contents. Again, delight painted his features.
They smell of flowers and other spices,
Elgar enthused.
Oh, how glorious this is!
You might want to take off that shroud, Elgar, and really give yourself a scrub.
Julian suggested.
But we'll give you privacy for that.
Christian nodded.
We'll be in the next room. Please, just call if you need something.
Elgar was already delightedly twittering to the skull. Christian tried not to worry about that. The skull had been all that Elgar had to speak to for however long. He would get over it in time. Christian and Julian headed out of the fast-warming bathroom and closed the door. Julian chuckled.
He's having a great time. I don't think he's going to be leaving the shower anytime soon.
Yes, but there's a lot of dirt that he has to scrub off.
Christian ran a hand through his own hair.
True.
At that moment, there was a soft knock on the door. Christian called for the person to come in. He recognized the minds. His mother, Sophia, and Seer were there, and there were other minds too. Small sparks of warmth. They were not human minds, though. The door opened, and Sophia was the first to race inside. She was carrying a large box without a lid. Her face was just shining. Her eyes were huge with tears of joy.
Christian, Julian! Your mommy did a wonderful thing! A wonderful, wonderful thing!
Sophia cried and thrust the box towards them. Inside were 4 kittens. Julian let out a shocked but happy laugh. Christian bit down on one of his own. He looked up at his mother's face. She looked a little smug.
Mom, what did you do?
Christian asked. His mother grinned.
I brought a little joy and happiness into this house. Well, for some of us.
Join us next time for episode 91, Kittens Rule.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.